Sí, es en inglés esto, ¿no? Oh. So it has to be in English, all for you, David.
I'm so sorry.
Well, first of all, thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us here in Open Value Foundation, especially to you, David, for coming and joining us in this event on the our journey with Social Business. I think we've been together like for 7-8 years so far. It's been wonderful, and we wanted to share with all of you and all people behind the screens. What this journey has been about and all the things that we've been doing together, and of course talk about a social business model. I think Alvaro, you can start having a conversation until we'll be managing all the event. And well, again, thank you for coming. Thank you, David, for joining and for traveling to Spain. And Alvaro, I think the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Maria. So yeah, we have wanted to create an event because of this 10 years, as Maria was saying, as a sign of gratitude. First of all, because of everything that we've learned. It's also been, I think, this year that you've been having also your 10th anniversary. And we were able to go, well, I wasn't able, but some of the team was able to go to Berlin to the 10th anniversary. And basically, what I'd like to share is a bit about the where has the story and how has the story been with Social Business, no? Maria Ángeles León, which is a founder of Open Value Foundation, met Professor Yunus, I think it was in around 6 years ago in London. And she was really impressed with the story, and she was really impressed with the case of Danone. I don't know if most of you might know that there's a really interesting story that Yunus has made with Danone in collaboration with Danone, no? And basically, up to that point, Maria Ángeles and her husband were doing basic philanthropy, normal philanthropy. But this story inspired them to change and try to look for more sustainable ways and try to look for ways to have social engagement through the business, not through the business. So I think it was 2014, we started to collaborate different ways, in different ways. With Yunus, no, with Yunus Social Business. But at the same time, we were also on our way of trying to bring to Spain venture philanthropy, trying to promote impact investment, and even trying to also start our own impact investment asset management firm, which is Global Social Impact Fund. And through all of that learnings and through all of that path, there are some examples that I'd like to point out, which have been for us quite crucial on our journey to understand what impact investment is like, which have been by the hand of Yunus Social Business, no? Which is Tugende. Tugende was the first business that was invested by Global Social Impact Fund, and it was a business that Yunus Social Business had already been invested in, and that they actually were the partner that actually helped us scope that opportunity. And also, we will be speaking later on with the CEO of Burn. Burn is also a business which was which we invested through Open Value with the collaboration of Yunus Social Business, which is a great example of what we're actually trying to do in the foundation, in Open Value Foundation, which is to serve as let's serve as a kindergarten, or I don't know how to call it, but serve for social businesses up to the point that they're able to be invested in Global Social Impact Fund, which is actually what happened with Burn. The case of Burn was a business that we actually invested through Yunus Social Business, but after some years, it got invested by Global Social Impact Fund. So it's a really great success story for us, which was made possible through this partnership, through scoping, different initiatives that right now are already on our portfolio of Global Social Impact Fund and make sense to all of the work that we're doing. And that's been a really great learning experience with them, no? Basically, just to end up, no, it for us right now, it's been a tremendous learning experience that we want to share also, no? We want to share, and that's why you are all here, just because we hope that we're able to, as Yunus Social Business has done with us, we're able to share all of this learning experience that we've had, that Yunus Social Business can give us, so that we can promote impact investment, venture philanthropy here in Spain. And we hope that you feel accompanied by us. You feel that we are also by your side, as we felt at the same time by Yunus Social Business. So yeah, basically that's the brief introduction that I wanted to make before we jump in. And I have the opportunity of having also Ana Fernandez Lavillada with us, and I was going to be speaking, but just a minute before the event, I just saw her, and I told her, like, it couldn't be a better person to introduce Yunus, Professor Yunus, and we're going to be putting a video. But before putting a video that Yunus has done for this event specifically, I want to have Ana just come and just present yourself, and also if you can read out a short bio that we've prepared of Professor Yunus. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Well, in fact, this was not prepared, so I was just arrived and said, well, would you like to introduce Yunus? I say, I cannot say no. Well, my name is Ana. I'm based in Santander. I don't know if we are all Spanish or people who is at the other side of the screen. I'm based in Santander, a small city in the north of Spain. Even if I'm an accountant professor, I teach accounting and auditing. I started working on entrepreneurship and how to foster my students and how to make a difference in the world since 2008, more or less. But in 2015, I was very, very lucky, and I met Professor Yunus in an academic forum. Since then, my head completely changed and move around, and I start to work on social business, social innovation, the new economy, the new world, and all the movement about the economy of impact, or impact economy, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm very happy to introduce Professor, even it's not so easy. So I'm also very glad you give me a small video, or it will be longer than the than the speech, definitely. Yeah. So, well, Professor Yunus, he co-founded Yunus Social Business, and currently he is the chairman of the board. He is the founder of Grameen Bank, what we call in Spanish the Banco de los Pobres. He is the father of microcredits and the economic movement that has helped millions of families around the world to go out of poverty. Today, Grameen Bank has over 8.4 million members. 97% of them are female. That's something which is quite peculiar in this movement. He has lent over 12.5 billion US dollars. And in 2006, he received the Nobel Prize. That's why he's well known, because he got the Nobel Prize in peace. Even maybe he should have received the economy Nobel Prize, but he received the peace Nobel Prize for the efforts to create economic and social development from below. Professor Yunus is also the creator of social business, and since 2006 has focused on spreading and implementing the concept. That's why he's helping most of the academic centers, universities and research centers to be focused on this. And that's why since 2019, I have a Yunus Social Business Center in Cantabria. He has written 4 books, and you have a lot of literature and articles in the academia. The last one is The War of the Sea Zeros, and probably he will speak more about this. And among Professor Yunus, Professor Yunus has received lots of awards. He is one of the only 7 people in history that has the 3 awards, the biggest awards in the world, with Martin Luther King or Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela. So we are talking about a person who is really peculiar. I will say that he's a lovely person, that once you met him, you start to think, okay, I need to do something else than teach accounting. I need to do something with my life and try to change the world, unless all you can do in your region or around even your family or your neighborhood. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, even if I was not prepared for this today. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna. Yes, we're going to be watching a video and yeah.
Congratulations to all of you with the Open Value Foundation and also, of course, YSB, Unit Social Business. Your partnership between your two organizations has gone a long way. It lasted 10 years already and many more years to come. And that friendship brought us together, people from 2 different continents, working for one sole goal, to change the world. That's our goal. That's what we have been working for the last 10 years. But your work has become more important now than it was 10 years back. The world has changed so much in the last 10 years. It's getting worse and worse and worse. We are near the finishing line, as if the world is going to destroy us from this planet because of all the terrible things that we have done to this planet. Global warming, wealth concentration, unemployment, and everything. And then came the COVID. COVID-19 has turned around everything. Our institutions were crippled, businesses were crippled, people who were close to poverty line, they went deeper into poverty. Those who were above the poverty line are pushed below the poverty line. It's a total disaster in a very short period. And it went so fast. And we thought we are now coming to the end of everything. Then came the Ukrainian war. Now that is destroying everything that we built, because everybody's life is touched negatively by the Ukrainian war. They even raise a threat for nuclear war. What a thing to do. What a crazy thing to do. And this is where we are right now. That's where you build the hope. You bring hope to the whole world, not just one region of Africa, but all over the world, that we can change all that. We can create a new world, a world of 3 zeros. 0 net carbon emission, 0 wealth concentration, and 0 unemployment. That's the one world that we want to build. We're encouraging young people to create 3 zero clubs so that everybody get busy making implementation of the idea that we don't want to contribute to global warming and all that. We want to become a 3 zero person. Our contribution to global warming will be 0. Our contribution to wealth concentration will be 0. Our contribution to unemployment will be 0. That's the commitment we want to make, our young people want to make. And what you do looks very small in the context of this huge, big problem we have around us. But every big thing starts with very, very small at the beginning. And that's where we are. And we have already spent 10 years. And we already have a tremendous experience. And our value of our work is more important today than it was ever before. Congratulations to all of you. And I wish you a long journey and very quick way to achieve the goal that we set for ourselves, creating a world of 3 zeros. Thank you very much.
So I didn't introduce David, and I just, I'm sorry. We are having the opportunity of having David here with us, and I would like just to give you time to explain a bit how have you felt this collaboration has been, and anything that we've missed out from your initiative of Social Business that you would want to to explain.
Thank you. And actually, you mentioned me traveling to Madrid today, but I think it was a very easy thing for me because when I departed this morning, it was 10 degrees only. And when I landed here, it was 26. And I'm also sorry that it needs to happen in English. That's because of me. But my Spanish doesn't go far, so that wouldn't be a good session today. So thank you. And to extend a bit, first of all, before we go into that, the words of thankfulness from Professor Yunus, we are extremely thankful that we have this partnership with you. Somehow you have also been a bit trailblazers here in Spain for social entrepreneurship and social business, which is very much also one of the very important things that we try to do, that the whole Yunus network tries to do. And then you have heard Professor Yunus just speaking about that it is very important that we start with individual actions, and individual actions mostly start with small things, like you mentioned just before. You met that person and then you got inspired and you took action. And from your action, again, others took action. That's a bit the spirit that we always had. So thank you very much for that journey together. And yeah, maybe let me expand a bit on what we do at Yunus Social Business. So we come out of the, I would say, Yunus philosophy, Yunus school. And we picked up that idea of social entrepreneurship. The Grameen Bank being the first ever social business that has been created. And the way I personally always define a social business is that we are marrying two worlds, the best of two worlds. So we have the power of charitable organizations or foundations that have a very strict focus on solving a problem, and a determination and also patience to solve that problem. And on the other side, you have the power of a business, which is actually the power of moving resources, assets, people to achieve a goal. So if you marry the both of them, something wonderful can happen. And that's what we define actually as social business. That is a company that is 100% focused, like a foundation or a charitable organization, on solving a problem. It is existing because it wants to solve a problem. And we'll come back to that notion afterwards. But it is employing a very special way to solve the problem. It is employing a business way to do it. So it strives for financial sustainability. It strives to grow as any normal business, but grow in a very sustainable way, whilst respecting the remits of the 3.0 world that we want to build with it. So I mentioned already the word patience. Patience, I think all of you work in that sector. You know how patient we need to be to actually achieve a positive impact. And sometimes you have setbacks before you have double of the achievement. Because every setback is also learning. And we, throughout our journey, have had a lot of these setbacks as well that have made us stronger and stronger, and the model stronger and stronger over time. So patient capital is the very first thing we provide as Yunus Social Business to these social entrepreneurs, because we just take a hypothesis that is, if those entrepreneurs which are focused on solving a problem will grow, their impact and their problem-solving capabilities will grow with them. And as we grow them, well, we solve the problem. So here, the problem with these social entrepreneurs is today that they have an acute lack of financing because a business needs financial resources to grow. So I just looked it up this morning. Still, the news reports say that we are facing a $2.4 trillion gap in financing to reach the SDGs year over year. So every year we are not going up to $2.4 trillion to invest in the SDGs. Actually, the next year is even more that we need to invest to reach the goal. And that's actually where we come in and we try to say, okay, today we're looking at an impact investing sector, which is $750 billion globally. Confront that with the 2.4 trillion that we need to do. So we need to grow that. That's our first mission. So we bring patient capital into these social businesses at conditions which are preferred. So it's lower interest rates, much more accessible conditions in terms of collateral, flexibility, and that is actually giving access to financial resources where they wouldn't have had that before. And the second thing we do with the social entrepreneurs is providing them with non-financial ingredients for growth. That is, whatever can make a business be run more professionally, because at the end it is a business. That can be networking, that can be like consulting, can be mentoring of the entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. So, and that combination has proven over time very successful. And out of that model, we have curated the Yunus social business way of doing impact, which you can see here on the slide. So the way it all started is we have collected philanthropic capital, which is by definition a risk-loving kind of capital. And then we have taken ourselves an investment approach to that. So we give out loans, these patient financing, to social businesses together with the other types of support. And then we want to make the social business grow over time, but with a defined end date, because we're giving out a loan. So that gives actually then the capital comes back to Yunus social business, and then we lend it out immediately again. So we have like a vicious circle here, or a positive loop, a feedback loop of creating impact and impact and impact. And what is so important for us to evidence here is that the donation dollar, which used to have just one life in the beginning, so you give a donation, then somebody uses that for any kind of purpose, and then the next year you would need to give another dollar for donation to continue the good work. Here in this model, this dollar gets multiple lives, if you want. So you invest it, it's doing the positive impact, just like a charitable dollar. You're having a social business approach, so you're contributing to the financial viability of that social business. So it's going to create a machine that turns in itself. And then we get it back and we lend it to another business. So we have 3 levels of impact that are over and over and over and over created. And that's just the way where we have seen, and our impact measurement shows that a very strong lever in impact creation, if you look at how much you give out as a loan and how many people are impacted by that, we are absolutely amazed to see these figures. And we'll come back to that afterwards. So here's just a snapshot of these impact figures. So we've been able to actually touch positively millions of lives over the last 10 years, also with the help of the Open Value Foundation. So I think we're pretty proud of that. and we really want to inspire everybody to follow our path and seek collaboration with people like the Open Value Foundation, like us, and then learn from the model that we have tested over the years, and then replicate it and spread the word, like Professor Yunus has mentioned in the beginning. So that was a quick introduction into the model itself. So we'll have the time afterwards maybe to exchange a bit more on that one. What I wanted to come back to is the couple of projects we have been able to do together, because I absolutely believe this is jewels of impact creation, and we've been very lucky enough that every project we have been doing together has been a huge success. There's also a reasonable chance of these things to fail. Over time, we manage that failure risk quite well, I think. But here we are looking over all the projects to a splendid success. So the first one is Impact Water. Actually, they're solving a quite simple problem. It's access to clean water. So a quite simple but hard to solve problem. So here we gave out a loan. It was, I think, $200,000 to this Ugandan-based company, which is providing equipment to private schools to actually provide clean water to the students every day. So in Uganda, what you need to know is 9 million people lack sustainable and regular access to clean and safe drinking water. And every single week, 440 children die of waterborne diseases in the country, every single week. So it's a really, really relevant problem, a pressing problem in that country. And through the equipment that Impact Water is providing to the schools, they have actually provided safe water to 14.2 million children, or are continuing to do that on a regular basis. And they are currently touching 1/3 of the private schools in the whole country and expanding their model because it is so successful into neighboring countries. So you see, that's really a growth story, which is really nice. So in the beginning, we started with a concept which was quite small and has grown into something which has at national level become really, really relevant and substantial. And that's the first evidence, I would say, of what I mentioned before, how you have a leverage effect by using social businesses as a, let's say, as a tool to create positive impact. So that was for the first one. The second one, also a very interesting one, a bit differently located, I would say, not geographically, but in terms of sector. So it's also a business that is located in Uganda, but it is active in the agricultural and food sector. So that was a loan that we gave out together. I think it was $300,000 or $350,000. And it's a business model which we like a lot. It's actually a model where they begin at the very beginning of what farming needs to have to really well function. It's quality inputs. So 70% of the population in Uganda is in some way or another dependent on agriculture. The incomes are dependent to agriculture, whether they are smallholder farmers or somewhere else in the value chain, like transportation or the processing of the foods or storage or distribution or whatever. And the vast majority of the smallholder farmers, they live on less than $1.9 of income per day. So it's literally nothing. So Guts and Commodities is a social business that tries to improve that situation by providing quality inputs to the farmers and then giving training to the farmers on how can they, on their very small plot of land, be optimally producing, yielding, I would say, products on their small plot of land. And then they go further and then they give access to the markets to the smallholder farmers. So they have chia seeds, for instance. They have quality controls in place, and then they actually sell that at standards which are even eligible for European markets. So that's increasing then the average income of a smallholder farmer to $5 per day, which is huge, no? From $1.9 to $5. That makes a huge difference. So it has touched 10,000 farmers over a lifetime. And since we have financed it together, it has grown twice. So it is now twice the size than it has had before we went in. It's also very successful, and it has repaid back the loan fully, just as Impact Water before. And then maybe briefly also about Cycle Connect, and then we'll have also Burn, but Burn, I'll not talk too much about it because we have much better suited persons to talk about that today. So Cycle Connect is also Ugandan based. They are trying to address a problem which is financing of productive assets for mostly people that are living in very rural areas, so very far away from any kind of infrastructure. And they're trying to solve that financing problem that I just mentioned before, access to credit. And sometimes a simple asset like a sewing machine or a bicycle can make the difference between poverty and non-poverty. And here, this Cycle Connect, they're providing financing in a way where they finance your bicycle and you repay that as you can, and then you own it at the end. So you own your own luck. You own the asset that is the basis for your income creation. And that is something that they have done with 10,000 people over time. And on average, the income is increased by simple asset financing by 30%. By the simple fact of owning a bike and being faster to go from one field to the other or to your workplace or whatever can have a very tremendous impact. and they have repaid as well their loan fully. So in this sense, we've been very lucky and very successful to deploy the model together. So on the last one is burn manufacturing. But honestly, I'll skip that here, not because we do not want to talk about it, but because I think we have another section today, which is double-clicking on it.
So, yeah, thank you, David. I'm not sure, I'm not really aware of the time, because I know Peter Scott, which is the CEO of Burn, is going to be with us. But, Brezo? Okay, yeah. So just before, no, going into slightly, because we are having like 5 minutes just to speak about Burn, I think it would be interesting to understand, how do you pick social enterprises? What is your process of really digging into social enterprises to make sure that, well, we've just shared three stories of success. This is not really common to find impact investors that have 100, like 3 stories that we're sharing, no? So I find that we've learned quite a lot from your process of screening, and I just want to ask you how, like, specifically with Burn, because we're going to have the chance of most probably speaking with Peter Scott. What did you like, going specifically, how did the process go, or how does the process go on deciding on an investment, and what did you see specifically on Burn that attracted you to make the decision of investing in Burn?
Yeah, Burn, I think it's one of the most beautiful success stories we have had over time. It's a real jewel in impact creation, and I think we since the beginning we fell a bit in love with the model that has been presented to us. So Burn is, just for a very brief introduction, a company that is producing clean cooking stoves. So and it's solving a multitude of problems like respiratory diseases, which are the #1 cause of death across many sub-Saharan African countries, because actually they burn firewood in closed spaces, and then the fumigene is actually then inhaled, and that creates a lot of issues. And also from an economical perspective, it's just more, it's very resource intensive. So you need to have firewood that costs, and Burn is with their cook stoves employing a very efficient way of heating meals. But Peter can talk more about that. But just to come back to that, to that process, actually, it's hard work. That's for sure. So it's not easy to find those and then to assess those entrepreneurs. And for us, I think it starts really with the vision of the company. So I mentioned before that it is so important for us to understand that the company has been created to solve a problem, and it's not any kind of problem that has been created and accidentally produces a positive impact. And for this, it is so important for us to understand the entrepreneur and have a very, very good feeling for him, and a bit grill him on what is his intention to create that also over time and in the long term. Is he going to stick to that? And then, well, we have a very, I wouldn't say standard, but a very, very thorough process of looking at it. So we look at the financials, we look at the impact figures and so on, like an investor would do it. Actually, it's not so different from that, but we add that impact lens on top of our investment decision, very importantly, and all along the process. So they are very different gates. Now, when we come back to Burn, why did we fall in love with it? It's so multi-layered problem solving with Burn, which is very, very nice. So first of all, it's a company that has grown since we financed it from 100 to 600 employees, and I think even more now, from 250 cook stoves per year to more than 2 million. So it's creating employment and economic opportunities for people. 60% of the workers, by the way, of Burn are women. Also very interesting here. That's just one thing that Burn has solved. But with their cook stoves, they have obviously that health aspects that come in. So less of toxic fumes that are inhaled. It has an economic impact, which is measurable because it's cheaper. and quicker. It has, because it's quicker, the women could spend more time with their children and take care of them. It's having another impact. Then at the end, because it is so good, like burning and more efficient in burning, it saves tons of CO2, thousands of tons of CO2, and at the end, it's locally produced and manufactured. So that's, I think, a very key aspect for us, because at the end, what we want to do is grow economic webs locally and foster that growth. So here we look at a value chain which is 100% local. Super interesting, no? Because many other manufacturers would import and then just assemble locally, and that's different with burn. So it was a jewel, and I could go on, and Peter will tell you a lot about how that works in practice. But I think also for you guys, now at OVF, it has been a bit of a special case, burn, no?
Yeah, definitely. Like I was sharing before, no, but burn is one of our most successful stories because it was invested through social business, but at the end it has been repaid. Most of it, I think, it has been repaid, and at the same time, it has been an investment that we made knowing that eventually the figures that Burn was having were going to be meeting the criteria that Global Social Impact Fund has. Global Social Impact Fund is an asset management firm which is also part of our holding, like it's our big brother, I would say. No, like we are investing in companies, as I was saying before, hoping social businesses, hoping that one day they meet the criteria which has to have for them to be invested in by a Global Social Impact Fund, which is basically having a profit, so being profitable, having passed through break even, and also having at least $2 million of revenue. So we invested in an earlier stage, hoping that through our investment, it was going to be able to surpass those figures, those criteria, and that eventually it could be invested by Global Social Impact Fund. And it has. And hopefully we are able to have more success stories like this. But for us, it's like a really, really something that makes sense to our work. So, and it was thanks to you. And I would say there's many businesses that have been also invested by Global Social Impact Fund and many other asset management firms that have been detected by counterparts like Social Business. And I would like to ask also, I'm not sure if we have time, but I think I had the chance of visiting Uganda. I think it was in 2017, and I met some of the employees that Social business has there, which I found really interesting, and right now are an important figure also for our screening process in Global Social Impact Fund, because they are the ones that are there, knowing the businesses. How much time and does it take for a business to be to pass through your due diligence process or pass through your screening process? On an average, of course, it might vary quite a lot, but on an average, and what are the most crucial points in that investment process, you would say? It's like, yeah, I'd like to ask that.
The easy answer is it depends. And the bit more complex answer to it is, in terms of timing, I would say it all starts with the sourcing exercise, what we call sourcing. It's where our investment managers locally have the eyes and ears open and look out through the networks, through the associations and so on. What could be out there as a business? That's a more diffuse process. And then they are drawing a long list, if you want, of potential businesses which are interesting. And then that's actually where the business starts to get into the investment process, formally speaking. And then from that long list to the disbursement really of the money to them, you usually can count around like 3 months, I would say. And it depends obviously on how complex the business is, how complex the financials are also. Sometimes there's a bit of work, heavy lifting that needs to be done in the due diligence phase. So you need to look at the legal setups of these firms. You need to verify the financials also. That can take a bit of time. But I would say the heavy lifting and the process is mostly done in what we call the initial review, where the investment manager really does an in-depth scan of the social business, looking at of all the aspects. So first of all, analyzing the market itself in terms of what problem do we try to solve, or how relevant is that problem, and then how does that business model contribute to that model positively, and in the same time assessing more from a factual, objective, financial investor lens, the business, is it credit worthy, and do we see scale in the long term, because that's also important for us. So that's where the heavy lifting is actually happening. Then it goes into an investment committee, where for us it is very important to have investment committees which are locally infused with people that are on the ground, know the problem, know the objective that is to be solved, and also have most of the time somewhere in their career have had financial experience.
Well, thanks for sharing, because that's a lot of sharing, you know, for people that I'm seeing here, that I'm sure that all of this can give them quite a lot of an idea of how this works. I think that if I'm seeing right, I think Peter is now with us. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
In sub-Saharan Africa, the simple act of cooking is bankrupting families, damaging their health, and destroying forests. In 2011, our team set out to achieve one simple thing: to save lives and forests by revolutionizing the global cook stove sector. Since then, we have manufactured hundreds of thousands of cook stoves in Kenya, and these stoves have transformed the lives of millions of people.
One manufacturing customer service.
To be a mother, surely you must make sure your family is safe. Your kids get proper education. Your family eat properly. This is my 6th year of using the cocoa. It is very safe. When I light it, the smoke is very reduced. I'm spending a quarter of the money compared to the old stove. You can buy books. You can maybe take your kids for a trip. They can enjoy. Yeah, that's a whole family. I think so. It will help. I really like it.
Our cook stoves have revolutionized the lives of millions of people like Evelyn. Burn is now poised to bring its revolutionary biomass cook stoves, as well as a new range of electric, hybrid, and liquid fuel stoves to sub-Saharan Africa and beyond. Our international team is committed to designing and manufacturing super fuel-efficient stoves in Kenya and distributing them to households across the continent. Burn is committed to creating a world where all families have clean, safe, and affordable cooking solutions. We invite you to join us as we bring our clean cook stove revolution to the world.
Hello, Peter. He's with us, no, Breto? Yep. Hello, Peter. Can you hear us?
I can, yeah.
Oh, great. We were just watching a video of Burn, and I was really, really impressed. Thanks for joining. And we can hear you perfectly well. I haven't had the chance to meet you, and it's a great opportunity, actually. I'm Alvaro. I work at Open Valley Foundation. I'm the project manager of impact investing, and it's great to have the honor of having you here. David is with us. I don't know if you're able to see him also on the screen. Um, and yeah, it's great to just have a chat with you and get to know a bit better. How has this journey been for you, and get to learn from your experience. So I'm just gonna start if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. I see that I'm very sort of washed out from the light. Can you see me okay? Or maybe that's just the weird way it is. You can see my face okay?
Yeah, yeah. I think everyone is seeing you well. Yeah, they're saying yep.
Okay,
So,
great.
yep, Peter, I think that from what I've learned from your story, you were in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the 1990s, and you witnessed quite a lot the deforestation caused by the production of charcoal for household cooking, and from there you started to have an idea, which now is a huge thing. That idea, no? Can you please tell us a bit further some of the stuff that happened at the beginning of this journey for you?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me here. And it's a real pleasure. It's such an exciting time for Burn. So I'm really, delighted to be here and share what's happening. It's been a very long journey. Yeah. So in 1990, I saw deforestation in Congo for charcoal production for cooking, and yeah, I got down on my knees and wept when I saw it. It was sort of like seeing Eden turned into a moonscape, and yeah, when I said I commit my life to it. So that was, I guess, 32 years ago now, and so yeah, since then, well, yeah, a lot has happened. It's really been since 1997 that I've been working in the cook stove sector, but I somehow sort of feel like we've just gotten started just over the last few months. So excited to share more about that journey with you.
And in this journey, who has joined you? Who were the first people or the first organizations that decided to invest in you, to accompany your journey?
Yeah. Well, I worked as a consultant from 97 until 2010. And at one point I was sent to Haiti to test someone else's cook stove, and we couldn't even get the stove to boil water. So it was that sort of moment where I said, like, I just need to do this myself. And so I went back to this little island off of Seattle that I think has more PhDs per square mile than anywhere else in America. So some of I think carbon fiber was invented there. So there's an amazing engineering and design talent. So yeah, I actually moved there and I spoke to 40 people and I said, we're going to change the world. We're going to revolutionize the cook stove sector. And so luckily there were amazing engineers and designers that really joined me and worked with me for free. After I presented, one of my co-founders stood up and handed me his credit card and said, let's get started. So yeah, I was really blessed to start in a place where people really cared about impact, changing the world, and were willing to do it on a shoestring. We all went to the food bank. I think for the first 2 years, we literally, were starving while we tried to get this thing off the ground. So I was very blessed that, so many people in the world want to make a difference. And really, if you give them that opportunity, it really, people are willing to, literally go to the food bank to join you if they feel like what your vision is truly transformative.
Wow, that's really impressive just to hear. Um, I don't know how you managed. I hope that one day, if I'm able to start something like you, I have the capacity of having these leadership skills to bring people on board that way. And we'd like to know a bit more. We've seen the video. We've just been sharing a bit. David has been sharing a bit about Burn also, but from your side, we'd like to hear a bit. How does the business model work? How do you make money? Yeah.
Sure. Well, just before I touch on that, the video is actually so out of date now. I think that video is now 4 years old, and we're just releasing a new version of it. But we've made so many leaps and bounds since that video.
So this month we set a record for making 200,000 stoves in a single month. And so that, I think back when we made that video, we were making about 250,000 stoves a year, and now we're doing that in a month. So when you think about that 200,000 stoves will impact, 200,000 households, 5 people per household. It's roughly 1 million people, new people being impacted by having our stoves and products with them. But yeah, the model is fairly straightforward. We design stoves in Kenya, we manufacture them in Kenya, and then we distribute them around 10 different countries, and we make money by selling those stoves, and then we also generate carbon credits. And so probably 30% of our revenue is from carbon credits and carbon offsets. And so, luckily with carbon financing now, we can actually almost give our wood stoves away. So whereas before, a wood stove would cost $30 or $40, there really was no market for it. So, we didn't really sell any because we were selling to the poorest of the poor. Now we can heavily subsidize those. So now we're, on track to, really provide a super fuel efficient wood stove to the 800 million people that need them. So we're just in a sort of rocket ship right now. We're building capacity. We doubled production and capacity just even in the last 2 months, and we'll double it again to 500,000 units by I think April or May of next year. So so the carbon offset business has really helped to transform our business, and now we're opening a new factory in Ghana, a new factory in Nigeria, a new factory in DRC, and also scoping out a new factory for India. So yeah, the goal is just to scale this thing as fast as we can.
Wow, that's amazing. Also, so I'd like to ask you, just this is off the record, but it's basically going to be, from my understanding, from what you're just sharing, your business is going to be much more concentrated on the future on the carbon emission market, no CO2. So it's, you're not going to be making so much money in the future from selling cooking stoves, but actually from the carbon emissions market.
It's a mix. So we have kind of 4 different products. So we have, the world's most fuel efficient wood stove, world's most fuel efficient charcoal stove, but now we're launching a new range of electric and LPG stoves. So the goal is really to displace all of our charcoal business with electric. And I think we're positioned to do that. That's, even though we make this super fuel efficient charcoal stove, the whole business existed to, reduce people's consumption of charcoal and eventually eliminate it. So yeah, so with it depends on the stove and the product and the model, but it'll be a mixture of some stoves almost given away and other stoves sold for $100, but all of them will generate carbon credits.
Mm-hmm. And what were your main obstacles that you've encountered in your way of trying to build Burn?
Sure. Well, I'm sure every social entrepreneur would say the same thing, but just funding. When I started, nobody was interested in an equity investment at all. And so, we went from being at the food bank to maybe living on rice and buying our own rice and beans. But really, up until I would say 6 months ago, we always struggled to make payroll over the 11 years that we've been here. So it was really just, there was no funding, there was no commercial funding, local banks wouldn't fund. Many people in the world, were focused on the past failures of the cook stove business. And so, yeah, it was very, very difficult to raise any sort of capital. And that's changed now, is that now we're seeing, really a big appetite for the cook stove business, because it can see this obviously huge impact, but also the potential to generate carbon offsets with a fairly small amount of investment on a per stove basis.
And from what I know, in the next 3 years, you're going to be expanding and trying to grow into Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, DRC, Nigeria. Are you finding obstacles in trying to set up Burn in all of these countries? What has been the experience up to now?
Well, from 2013 to 2016, we just sold in Kenya, And then in 2017, we launched in Somalia. So Somaliland, Puntland, Somali, the whole Somali region. So we kind of cut our teeth on the expansion market in Somalia. So yeah, if you can succeed in Somalia and Mogadishu, you can kind of succeed anywhere. So it's actually, everything has been fairly easy since then. So I'd love to say there were all these difficult obstacles about us expanding. To be honest, it's really, I have such an amazing team that we really haven't seen many big challenges. We thought, Nigeria would be really difficult, or we'd face lots of, fraud or corruption, or, people asking for bribes, things like that. And so it's really been shockingly easy for the expansion. I think one of the challenges is still that, there's high tariffs between some of these countries. So even though we make it in Kenya, if I want to export to Mozambique, it's like a 35% tariff. So one of the reasons we're building new, sort of assembly facilities around the continent will help us address some of those duty issues. But yeah, it's maybe I'm just being I very much focused on what's happening today, and so I don't normally spend time thinking about all the past challenges. So yep, really the challenges are funding, and that's pretty much it.
So Peter, we were first. Well, we first invested in Bern through Open Value Foundation in collaboration with Yunus Social Business, and I think it was 2019. And after that, 3 years later, we have invested in Bern through Global Social Impact Fund. We've been speaking a bit about this, and we're really proud of this, because that makes so much sense to what we're trying to do. And I just want to know, you're talking quite a lot about the need of finance. Can you share a bit more on this? Can you share a bit more on what are your financial needs, and also what other major milestones have you accomplished also up to now with all of the funding that you have received through Yunus Social Business? Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, on the journey that we've been on, we've just managed to scrape enough money together to survive, to get to this point where now, we can access capital, and we're just trying to manage scale as opposed to manage can we make payroll. But yeah, so funding from things like from, investors like Yunus are absolutely game changers. There's days, months where we wouldn't have survived, but we managed to sort of piecemeal this together. So funding from funders like Yunus was so critical. So we feel indebted to them. In terms of, and yeah, so I'm not sure what else to say about that, except, well, it's great that then there was a follow-on investment. So I think that's super helpful. I mean, there's been so many different milestones along the way. GE and OPIC were our first funders. So they put in 4 million of debt. So we started the business with 0 equity because there was no equity available. It really wasn't until Acumen came along in 2015 and made, I think, a $750,000 investment in Bern. So, over the course of the last 11 years, I think we've raised something like $20 million. And really all of that has gone into, building sort of, Africa's, only modern manufacturing facility. So that, that's really where the funds have gone. And, right now we're probably spending, $1.5 million a month just on CapEx, just for equipment and machinery. Yeah.
And so you were saying that you've raised 20 million. I guess that some of it has been debt, as you were saying, and some of it has been equity, but I'm sure that you've been doing several funding rounds. Can you tell us a bit on how many funding rounds have you had, and how has your experience been in approaching those investment rounds? What are your learnings also, or what would you say to investors in order for us to be doing our job easier, or what would you advise us?
Yeah. We've only ever raised a relatively small amount of equity, so I think something like $5 million of equity over a couple of rounds. It's mostly been debt and grants. So we've raised about 10 million in grants and about 10 million in debt. This year alone, we're raising another $15 million of debt and another 40 million of carbon project finance debt. So it's interesting because in some ways we're very lucky because equity investors weren't interested in us. And so now I'm quite lucky that I don't have a bunch of PE or VC money behind me that's forcing me to just very narrowly focus on sort of quarterly profits. We're allowed to think much more long term because I only, most of the company is still owned by the founders. So the goal really for Burn is to not raise any more equity, but just to fund it through project finance and through debt, and then have most of that money, not be returned as dividends, but really we're looking at, starting a new foundation where all of our profits from carbon can be, continue to be put to social use, and as well as, take care of our staff and our team. But yeah, I think, in other industries, people have really had to raising a lot of PE or VC money then really exposes you to, you're then really subordinate to those investors and you lose control of the company. So yeah, I feel like Burn, we're very lucky that we don't have to be in that position. So we're sort of masters of our own destiny.
Yeah, that's great. So we're reaching the end of this conversation. And it's been great up to now. We usually like to ask really few quick last questions that we usually ask social entrepreneurs when we're having conversations with them. And so I'm just gonna ask them fast. So it doesn't have to be a long answer. So just a lesson learned over the years that may be useful for other social entrepreneurs. What would you be sharing?
Yeah, just a hyper focus on the product and the customer. And so taking a very long-term view. So, even though we were broke, we were spending our money on after sales, building loyalty with our customers. And so I think you have to take a very long-term view. If in everything we do, we think about, what does this mean 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in the future? And I think that creates a relationship with all of your partners and your customers. Short-term thinking in social business is not going to win.
Mm-hmm. 3 attributes of the ideal social entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, passion for the product. You could, if you don't really care about the space that you're in, it's not going to work. If you're in it for the money, you won't become rich and you won't become successful. So, and then I think tenacity. You need to be able to weather the hard times. And then I think really, again, it's this long term, like 100 years or 1,000-year thinking. When we went through COVID, we thought perhaps the business would go under, and we said to all of our staff that we won't lay anyone off. We'll all live on rice and beans. So people get that we're committed, that it's mission over money, and if people feel that about you and the business, then you'll survive. Again, if you're thinking about short-term gains, you're toast.
Any advice for an impact investor?
Well, again, it's very difficult, but taking the long view is really critical. And so short-term thinking is just bad for the planet, bad for people, bad for business. But I get that's very easy for me to say. But I think, yeah, unless people are taking very, very long, long views of time, it's not going to work.
And the last question, a dream fulfilled and a dream to be fulfilled.
Well, my dream is to provide clean cooking solution to, everyone on the planet. So there's, that's 3 billion people. So that's still the dream before I die. So I have 30 years left. So, the goal, I think we'll probably get to something like 20 million stoves a year. So I might make it within my lifetime, maybe not. But then the dream fulfilled, when I was 14, I said told my mom I wanted to save the world. So I haven't saved the world yet, obviously, but and then when I was in my 20s, I was like, God, if only there was like a place in Africa that designed and manufactured the best stoves in the world. And that dream has come true for me. So I feel very lucky that people around me are helping, make that dream come true.
Yeah, definitely. It has been amazing just listening to you. Thanks so much for making time. We hope to be having more conversations with you in the future and seeing that your dream becomes closer and closer. And we just want to send you congratulations and just a really warm applause from everyone here. Yeah.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great pleasure, and continue the great work that Eunice and um, you guys are doing, because yeah, it's critical for entrepreneurs like me.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Peter. Have a great evening. We'll be in touch. So, yep, David, any thoughts? I think that you're also going to be now just sharing a bit with us, no?
Yeah, what I found interesting in what Peter just said is he brought back that long-term vision thing. You probably all have also noticed that. That was one of the first things I've said and shared. It's this patience and, let's say, tenacity somehow to believe. And yes, it's a bit about being a dreamer, and but a realistic dreamer and a pragmatic dreamer, and that's what we try to be. And certainly Peter has been one of those realistic, pragmatic dreamers with a lot of tenacity.
Yeah.
So and we actually look with a lot of joy towards these success stories, because our ultimate goal as social business is not to stick on with these entrepreneurs forever, because we just want to lift them above that threshold where they can fly by their own wings. And Peter is a good example of that. So he's now flying by his own wings, but really his own wings, because he said, I'm not having a VC or a PE firm in my neck driving like all the APIs for me. And we're really proud to see those guys succeed in that sense. And for me personally, it's really nice. I had the luck to visit them in June, and it's amazing. So if you ever have the opportunity to visit those countries and be near to these factories, just have a look. They are also very welcoming you, because they're also very proud of their work, obviously.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have a chance. Please, Maria Angeles, listen to this. I need to go to Bern. Huh? No, seriously. Just two things that have come to my mind. First of all, I think Open Value has this same idea, no, of also trying to accompany social entrepreneurs in a part of the journey. Hopefully, in another part, it would be Global Social Impact Fund. But we're also kind of interested in this with investors at the same time. We are trying to accompany social impact investors, foundations, and other just people or organizations that want to start investing in social impact. And we've been trying to push so that there's more money going towards the social impact investing sector. In the last 5-10 years, I'd say that has been one of our core missions, just to try to make a bit of a movement around social impact investing in Spain. And we've actually, I'm seeing just here, a few foundations that have been part of quite an innovative initiative called the Fund of Foundations in English. I don't know, it's Fondo de Fundaciones, Fund of Foundations, I would call it in English, where it has been several foundations coming together and putting a ticket of around 10K, 10,000 euros, and all of them coming together through a learning experience and hands-on practicing all of that learning, putting themselves into all of those learnings into practice together, selecting social enterprises which they can invest in. And that's something that we've learned from you. And I think that is an indirect impact that has been great. No, all of that learning curve that we can show now to others and attract more capital towards this kind of initiatives is making total sense for us. And that's where we're trying to head. And I'd like to ask you, where I know that you are moving quite a lot. Whoops, sorry. I know that you're moving quite a lot of your investments towards Colombia. I had the chance of speaking with some of the teammates in Berlin last time I went, and I'd like to know a bit. What are your plans? Where are you heading?
Yeah, so absolutely echo on that vision that you just somehow put out there on how can we move more capital into that space. And it happens to be my personal motivation also why I joined social business, because I'm coming out of the traditional investment management world, and I wanted to be contributing to that bridge building, because the key fundamental thing I'm going to bed with every evening, besides my partner, obviously, is the question on how can we move money from where it is safe to where it is needed. And that's the fundamental question, which is also casting another question out there, which is a fundamental rethinking of risk. The fact of not investing into impact investing is actually a risk. The fact of investing into it might be a financial risk today, but in the long term, the fact of not doing it is a risk. And that's today completely ignored by traditional financial models and portfolio theories and whatever. So it's a fundamental question that we need to look at. How can we rebalance that old portfolio theory into something which is more impactful and integrate that notion of impact into these risk-return relationship? It is a risk-return impact relationship. So Colombia is one of those countries that have a stark capital need, because they are actually suffering from the same I wouldn't say problems than we see in the other countries, which is that the capital that is available in these countries is very elusive and concentrating in a couple of businesses or a couple of types of businesses, which are not necessarily representing the majority of the population or the economic web of these countries. And Colombia is not an exception to that. Yes, Colombia is a bit more developed than the less developed, maybe some of the African countries that we invest into, but it doesn't mean that all the challenges are solved for. They are just transformed into different kind of challenges. So if you look at Colombia, what is very interesting for us is they're a very big agricultural producer, obviously, exporting a lot of that stuff, like coffee and tropical fruits and so on. But the actual value creation, or a big part of the value creation, is happening outside of the country today. So it goes to sometimes beyond belief, even where coffee beans are, let's say, sent to Europe and then they are roasted and then back imported as grain milled coffee. So it's absurd sometimes. So it's equally important to invest into those. And Colombia is actually going to be a big focus country for us for the next couple of years, because Professor Yunus has mentioned it in the beginning. We're looking at a situation right now, geopolitically, and also from a climate and science perspective, which is very, very dangerous. We are on the finish line, he said, and I very much believe we are, because these tipping points are coming closer and closer to us, and we need to urgently act, and we need to double down for each year we did not act appropriately, like I mentioned with the 2.4 trillion. And that's what we now are witnessing, especially in the agricultural world, where we're looking at value chains which are very, very fragile. They have been made fragile through climate change. So smallholder farmer resilience is a big issue, which again is going to create an economic problem, which is again going to create a food security problem, which is then again creating a health problem. So food is the root of everything. So we're coming out of the earth, and so is the food. So we need to take care of that. So it's fragile. from that perspective, but also geopolitically, and let's say from an economical perspective, trade perspective, it has become very fragile industry. And you see it with the Ukraine crisis, for instance. Sunflower oil has tripled in price in Kenya. It is the main oil that is used for cooking in Kenya, one of the main oils that is used for cooking. Same for fertilizers produced there. So seamlessly or seemingly unconnected events suddenly become, through a butterfly effect, completely connected. And that's the same for Colombia. So also strengthening Colombia as a food producer will benefit other countries. And this is why we believe we need to strengthen them from an economical perspective, from a sustainability perspective, because we cannot think these problems as singular country-related problems. So investing into these countries is very much strengthening a global food system and not only Colombia. So I know that was a long answer to a short question,
No,
but I could go on and on and on.
yeah, definitely. And last time also, we're gonna jump into questions from you, from everyone that's here. So if you, but before we jump into questions that you might want to make, the last time that I was also with your team in Berlin, there was something that really got into me, and I just want to point out, which is adding to also to what you were saying, which is that there's been a lot of deployment of money also, or of impact investing in specifically in East Africa. So sometimes when you are trying to invest in social enterprises in East Africa, because there's so much money that is going towards that region, the opportunities or the interest that they're looking, it's so competitive that sometimes it's not really easy, no? You have to compete to invest in the good social enterprises in East Africa. There's a lot of impact investors that are looking there, and I found that really interesting. And it's great if there's competition. It also happens whenever you're in the more traditional investment. That means that we're heading somewhere, no? That the competition is there. We always say, no, in Open Value, that's a great sign that the impact investing is going to be something competitive. Is a great sign that it's maturing. And I just wanted to point out that before we jump into any questions that you might have for David, for me, for Maria, for whoever. Yep. Maiku. Wait a second. So that also they're watching us. Some people are watching us online, so they can hear us.
Thank you. Yes. Well, my English is not the best, but I'm going to try to do the best. I want to know if there are some entrepreneurs that search you for impact in them, but looking at solving problems that we are here in our society, like mistreatment, like sexual abuse, like that I suffer in first person. And I think that is a very, very serious problem that we don't want to see here. And I think that we need to invest in problems here in our societies, and not only in other countries, also in other countries, but we need to see our problems here. And we suffer depression, we suffer suicides in our young people, we suffer a lot of problems with alcohol. So I think that maybe we can invest in some educational programs in school, in universities, where we can help these young people and children to understand the importance of these heavy problems that we have also in our societies. So my question is, do you have some entrepreneurs that are worried or asking you for this investment in their social business?
So it's maybe more question for you, no?
I think both of us can answer. I want to answer a bit also.
Yeah, I was just going to add maybe one thing, a bit of flavor to that question. Yes, social business or working through social businesses to do positive impact is great model. But I personally believe it's not the only tool we can have in our toolbox. So there will always need to be some charitability. Not everything is easily businessable, I would say, transformable into a business. Many are, or maybe many are at the later stage of their life cycle, or let's say the conditions, the ground conditions need to be created. So that's first of it. No, so social entrepreneurs, they are there, but they are not the only ways to solve these problems. And second, absolutely, there's I've spent a lot of my time, or a long time in my life, in Luxembourg, which God knows is a country which is financially doing well, and still there are problems. Problems related to drug, to discrimination, to sexual abuse also, and I can also only echo what you say. We need to also locally, where you are, work on these things. Sure, the global south is a very acute region, and all these problems are linked, but we mustn't forget about the local aspects as well. And what I'm personally also missing a bit in these countries here is the awareness / education around the problem. That's, I think, an issue itself, but also about the tool social entrepreneurship to solve it. I've done business school myself. I didn't hear the word social entrepreneurship one single time in my courses. One single time, I didn't. Microfinance maybe, but social entrepreneurship never. And that's something where we in Europe need to massively work on. Because to the contrary of these countries, there is financial resources in our countries. It's now more about inspiring these entrepreneurs to take that approach, take that tool, and take that perspective to make a social business out of a problem. And then I think great things can happen here as well.
Yeah. I don't want to repeat what David said. I'd say that there's really similar. I mean, the only thing that I want to just point out is that not every cause is businessable or can be made or can be tried to solve through a business lens. First of all. Second, there are initiatives that come to us because we're investing in sub-Saharan Africa, but we are also investing in Spain. I wouldn't say that I found any business or social business that has approached us to try to solve this problem specifically in sub-Saharan Africa. And I think that David was saying that maybe there's really a great lack of awareness because of the culture in sub-Saharan Africa to this kind of matters, and how could you make that businessable, where there's a lot of needs and there's a lot of businesses that they're coming, but I wouldn't say that any business has come to us. But in Spain, there are businesses that are starting. There are startups, really small ones, but that are trying to tackle this in a business lens. And I think it's like a really important issue. Now, what we haven't invested in yet. Why? I would say that because of our investment thesis. One thing that is our impact theory is more related into trying to reach the most vulnerable, the most poor, and not. I'm not meaning that this is not vulnerability. Like it's really vulnerable, no. But we're trying to do it through an economic approach, not through an economic lens. Trying to invest in businesses that are tackling the most, like trying to empower the most vulnerable communities through an economic lens. And we haven't found yet a business that is oriented into that particular, I'd say, kind of beneficiary. But that would be really interesting to find that. Yeah. I think that we have time for one last question. So if anyone wants to just take the, yep.
Thank you, David. Alvaro, just a very short question. If you have any experience you could share with us co-investing with others.
Lots of them. No, actually, when we invest into a social business, it's very rare that we do not see on the we call that cap table, but the ones that would have already been invested, we are alone. So we have done a couple of things also together with the GSIF, obviously, where we have sourced together because we have shared that, let's say, that impact thesis, also the investment thesis. And then we actually, let's say somebody like Peter needs $1 million or like 750,000, and then we would just split that among 3 investors, and that can be very beneficial. So we have done a lot of that. And sometimes you can create, depending on who is teaming up, creating very interesting synergies. Like right now, Social Business is launching a big program, which is called the Take a Stick Initiative. It's focusing on water and sanitation in India and East Africa. And we have teamed up with the Swedish Development Agency, who has a big vision. They obviously come more from the geopolitical and the political intention to solve these issues, together with an NGO. It's called the Waste Foundation, Dutch-based, but very active on the ground. So they have a very deep knowledge of models that work in the wash and waste sector. You have us, which bring in more a knowledge about how to invest and look at these social business, how to grow them. And finally, we have a cooperation with the IKEA social entrepreneurship that is interested in the whole sector, especially waste as well, because they say, well, we're a consumer goods company, so we need raw materials, and we want to learn from it. And all of them have co-invested into this initiative. And I think this is an example where 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is not 4, but is 6 or 7 or 8 or 10. And there are many of these examples, actually.
So yeah, I'm not going to answer the question because we're right now out of time, and I think that it was really directed to David. But I do want to. It's a great way to end this event because it's been about collaboration, and what we've been trying to share with you is the need of collaboration in order for us to try to tackle these issues. We need to collaborate. I think that that's the main thing that we want to get out of this event, that we need to push so that more people join us, and we need to collaborate to make this more efficient. And yeah, so thanks so much everyone for coming. Thank you, David. It has been a great pleasure.
Thank you.
And we hope that you all enjoyed. Everyone that's also watching us in their house, we hope that you're still there and that you've enjoyed. And I hope that we can see you soon in other events like this. So we're gonna have something now just here. We can continue the conversation just here. And thank you so much.